Thanks for joining with us. Well, churches, mosques, synagogues are bombed. Religious leaders are kidnapped and tortured, and people of faith are harshly persecuted. Russia is carrying out a diabolical plan in Ukraine to cleanse the country of certain religious groups.
Advocates for religious freedom are raising the alarm about the abuses and calling for action to stop them. Wendy Griffith reports.
Russia is under the microscope for atrocities committed since the start of its war with Ukraine, from the killing and torture of religious leaders to the destruction of houses of worship. One Russian official even used the term de-Satanization to describe the plan to cleanse the nation of many religious groups.
De-Satanization should be understood as nothing less than the elimination of Ukraine's flourishing religious diversity.
Wednesday, members of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom met virtually to highlight how Russia's invasion of Ukraine is creating severe violations of religious freedom, especially in Russia's occupied territories.
The Russian military has indiscriminately bombed churches, monasteries, kingdom halls, mosques, synagogues, cemeteries, and other religious sites. And the Russian soldiers have abducted, tortured religious figures because of their leadership role.
At least 8 Russian tanks.
CBN News reported firsthand on the atrocities in the city of Bucha outside Kyiv. Our George Thomas met with Christians who were forced to hide and pray as Russian troops carried out atrocities.
The commander said he would make me watch as he killed the others, and then he would skin me alive.
167 Ukrainian Christians hid in the basement of their church when the Russian assault started. Video and pictures obtained by CBN News show church members praying, singing, and reading scriptures day and night. Anahan believes God spared their lives because of their prayers.
It was very clear to us that God was watching over us. Everything was in his hands. Like the story of how Daniel was in the lion's den, we were under God's protection.
Ukrainians' Jewish community is also targeted.
Russian forces attacking Ukraine have also physically desecrated Holocaust remembrance sites and sadly killed Holocaust survivors.
It's not just Ukraine. Since the invasion, Moscow is tightening its grip inside Russia, including religious groups. Moscow's exiled chief rabbi testified about the ongoing anti-Semitism faced by Jews there.
The new situation for Jews in Russia is becoming more and more dangerous. And in September, I called on the Jews of Russia, whoever can leave should leave the country.
Rabbi Goldschmidt says 30% of Russian Jews have fled Russia since the war began, with some 50,000 emigrating to Israel. CBN News recently accompanied a plane load of Ukrainian and Jewish refugees making Aliyah to Israel with the help of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Former Congressman Frank Wolf recommended sending a delegation to Moscow, including the Pope, to press Russian political and religious leaders to stop the persecution. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Well, this is yet more evidence of war crimes being committed by Russia in Ukraine and the horrific stories of what Russian soldiers are doing to the women there. The bombing of hospitals and schools, the targeting of infrastructure, whether that's the electrical grid or how people get food or transportation, targeting the civilian population. All of these things add up to one word: evil. This is evil. And when you look at what the Russian Orthodox Church has done, where they've endorsed the war, and they have said this is a good war, and all of these things happening, you really shake your head. What in the world are you doing? What are you trying to enforce here? And this whole dream of some greater Russia that includes all of Ukraine, well, if you're going to completely kill the people, what are you trying to do? It's time for the world community to really stand up to this and say, okay, we're going to hold you responsible for these war crimes. This should never happen again. Jews should never be targeted. People should never be targeted for their religious faith, but that's what's happening, and it's happening right now in Ukraine. In other news, despite some good news out of Europe, analysts are still predicting, that's for Credit Suisse, that bank, they're rescuing it. They're still predicting a rough ride ahead for our banking system. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That is right, Gordon. Stock in the Swiss bank Credit Suisse soaring more than 30% on news that it's getting an injection of nearly $54 billion. Switzerland's central bank stepped in with a loan to shore up the bank's finances. That's a major swing after shares of Credit Suisse plunged 30% the day before after its biggest shareholder said it would not kick in more money. That sparked fears of a downturn in the European banking system that could have spread to the United States. The head of Wall Street's biggest investment banking firm, BlackRock, however, predicts more bank seizures and shutdowns are possible in the days ahead, saying this could be a slow-rolling crisis. Well, a federal judge pressed both sides of the debate in a hearing questioning FDA approval of an abortion drug. The Alliance Defending Freedom argues the drug mifepristone is unsafe and did not undergo proper vetting. In a 4-hour hearing Wednesday, Judge Matthew Kaczmarek questioned whether the process to approve the drug rose to federal standards needed for approval. He also questioned whether a judge has the authority to withdraw that approval. Kaczmarek, a Christian known for his pro-life views, did not indicate how he might rule, but he did say he would make a decision as soon as possible. The House Homeland Security Committee kicked off hearings into Biden administration policies from the border town of McAllen, Texas. They say it's to get a first-hand look at the crisis on the southern border. Democrats on the committee chose to stay home, calling the move a political stunt. CBN's Caitlin Burke reports.
Chairman Mark Green defended his decision to hold Wednesday's hearing in Texas, saying it's important for lawmakers to get a first-hand look at what's going on if they're going to make informed decisions going forward. He also had some harsh words for his absent committee members.
You can't have bipartisanship if the other side fails to show up for their duty. And in the Army, when someone didn't show up, we called them AWOL, or absent without leave. Their place of duty is at this hearing because it's a full hearing, and they're not here. They're AWOL.
This hearing focusing on changes the Biden administration made to U.S. immigration policies when it took over.
Chief, in fiscal year 2020, the policy was detain and remove. The entire objective was to avoid releasing any illegal immigrant for any reason. In 2021, Secretary Mayorkas, the new administration, gutted all of those policies. Do you acknowledge, as the chief of the Border Patrol, that the driver of the crisis that you have described, of this dramatic change in flow, the policy is the policy of this administration to release instead of detain or remove illegal immigrants?
Law enforcement is pretty simple, sir. You have to have capacity and you have to have consequences. And anytime you don't have consequences, you're certainly going to see some increases.
Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz admits DHS doesn't have operational control, pointing to 5 sectors along the border that aren't secure. Sheriff Brad Coe of Kenny County, Texas, says his jurisdiction is under siege due to the amount of border crossings by illegal immigrants and smugglers.
We're averaging between 160 and 180 people per night that are going through the county unchallenged. That comes out to roughly 60,000 people entered through my county this year.
Lawmakers also focusing on how Mexican cartels are using the chaotic border situation to flood the U.S. with drugs like fentanyl.
Fentanyl-involved deaths has increased by over 230% since Biden has taken office. In my district alone, we have had fentanyl-involved deaths increase by over 350%.
Assistant Director for Homeland Security Investigations, Stephen Kagan, told lawmakers his teams have found that China is the source of the fentanyl supply chain, producing the chemicals needed to make the drug and shipping them to Mexican labs.
We've seized, I believe it's a little bit over 3.3 million pounds of precursor chemicals coming from China entering into Mexico.
Republicans say testimony like what they heard on Wednesday will not only help shape future legislation, but will also help hold the Biden administration accountable. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. Gordon, back to you.
Well, it seems clear the administration doesn't want to enforce the current law, and the whole let's release into the United States is a dramatic policy change, and that as a policy change that's been heard around the world. And so now you have, not just dozens, but over 70 countries where people are leaving and coming because they heard the word the border was open. that even if they get caught, they're going to be processed and then released into the United States. So that message has gone around the world. And if you're not going to enforce the law, then, you know, I've got to ask, why? What is your end game here? Because the end game for the United States is 3 million people a year who don't have jobs and don't have a visible means of support. So that means they're going to be flooding into our already overloaded cities, trying to find the American dream, and it's just absolutely crazy. I don't understand it, but we've been reporting on this now for some time, raising the flag. This is a real problem. This is a crisis on our southern border. Every single one of the law enforcement personnel on the border says this is a problem. We're creating things that we literally can't solve. And if we just would enforce the law and not either detain or remove, well, then you can stop the flow. But if they're not going to enforce it, I just shake my head. Why did you take an oath in office? What are you really trying to do? And I still can't figure out what's their end game here. What's the possible benefit either to them politically or to the country from allowing this policy to go? It literally makes no sense. Well, everything in moderation. That's an old Greek proverb, and it's usually associated with overeating and other bad habits. It also holds true for certain superfoods like spinach, almonds, and even some berries. Medical reporter Lori Johnson explains why too much of some healthy foods can be toxic.
If a food is good for you, then eating more of it is even better, right? Not necessarily. In some cases, too much of a good thing can become bad.
You can get yourself into trouble and have no idea, so it carries on for a long time because you would never suspect your favorite great food.
Some so-called superfoods like spinach, chia seeds, beets, and raspberries are high in oxalate. That's an often harmless chemical compound that for some people proves problematic if eaten in large amounts.
Now the fashions are these foods that are high in oxalate are very popular and promoted as good for us, so it's really easy to overdo it.
Other foods to watch for are quinoa, beans, and almonds because they're often consumed in large amounts, especially in gluten-free or dairy-free diets.
The almond milk and the almond flour, the almonds are thrown into every trail bar and trail mix and new version of granola and snacks everywhere and desserts. Almonds are a big problem because they're being adopted at a rate and being eaten at a rate that's never been done before.
Oxalate can attach to the minerals in our body and prevent these important nutrients from being absorbed. One example is calcium, which is necessary for strong bones. A calcium deficiency could lead to developing brittle bones, also known as osteoporosis.
And with men, it's particularly fatal. It seems to be that men break a bone, they're more likely to have that end up shortening their lives significantly.
Eating a lot of these high oxalate foods can also be tied to the formation of kidney stones.
Any kind of urinary tract problems are classic oxalate problems.
For years, nutritionist Sally Norton wondered why she suffered from foot pain, sleep problems, and arthritis. During the same time, she ate a lot of potatoes and Swiss chard. When she stopped eating those high oxalate foods, those health problems also stopped.
This really shocked me because I'm supposed to know how to be healthy, and I didn't.
She says others suffering from unexplained physical or mental health problems might want to examine whether they too could be eating too much of a good thing.
Oxalates are classically known to start harming digestion over time, where you start having digestive issues that can look like stomach problems or reflux. It can look like swallowing problems, or more commonly, things like irritable bowel syndrome.
So if you're someone who eats a lot of your favorite superfood, if it's high in oxalate, it might be wise to back off a little.
Well, Lori Johnson joins us now with some toxic superfoods and their swaps. And Lori, I've got to say at the start, I'm kind of getting tired of hearing, well, if you do this, then you're harming yourself. And then when you try to get a good diet, it's sort of like the old adage, water's really good for you, but it's also the leading cause of drowning. So how do you find the right path forward? And let's start with spinach, because when that was on the list, I was going, you got to be kidding me. You know, I made this beautiful dinner the other night of sautéed salmon with spinach and cherry tomatoes.
Yes, why didn't you invite me?
I thought I was doing really great. I thought I was, and then I hear your report and I'm going, spinach is bad?
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because normal amounts of spinach for people who are generally healthy are fine. What we're talking about today are foods that you should not overdo. For some people who overdo these foods can have some health problems. And let's face it, some of us do overdo foods. A lot of us, I know I do. A lot of us get into ruts where we eat a lot of the same food morning, noon, and night, like spinach.
So I'm not supposed to get it by the bucket?
Right. Just about a cup of spinach is about as good. But you know, some people put spinach on their omelet in the morning. They put it in their smoothie in the afternoon and have a giant spinach salad at night. So for folks like that who might be concerned about oxalate overload, a great replacement is arugula. Now, arugula is extremely healthy. It has vitamin C.
But it's better. It doesn't taste nearly as great as spinach.
No, I love the taste of arugula. Okay, we can agree to disagree, but you know, other low oxalate greens are romaine.
Now remind me, oxalates do what to you?
They bind to certain nutrients in your body and prevent your body from absorbing them, like calcium, and we need our calcium. So if you don't like arugula, which we can agree to disagree there, I love it. I love that little kick that it has, but most greens are very low in oxalates. Romaine, iceberg lettuce. The only greens that are high in oxalates are spinach, Swiss chard, and beet greens.
Which I love all of those.
Okay, it's okay to eat those in moderation.
I love all of them. That's great. Beet greens was a real discovery. They're delicious. I used to throw them away, but they're really good. Chocolate is a problem.
Yum. Now, this is my favorite food.
Chocolate is a problem.
Dark chocolate, we're talking about 70% cacao or greater. It turns out that most dark chocolate bars that were surveyed by Consumer Reports contained concerning levels of heavy metals, specifically cadmium or lead or both. So here's the thing.
How does lead get into chocolate?
A lot of the times it's in the soil, and other times it's in the processing. So
the plant draws it out of the soil.
Exactly.
And puts it in the fruit.
And sometimes if you let the cocoa, the beans sit for a long time, the lead can leach into it. So it's a complicated thing. If you want to know more about it, go to the Consumer Reports website. But just as a general rule of thumb, we're talking about consuming lots of dark chocolate, which is easy to do.
So
1 ounce is enough.
Stick with milk chocolate?
No, that doesn't have the health benefits.
Can I have a whole box of See's candy?
Oh, yeah, I know where you're coming from. So 1 ounce still gives you those wonderful health benefits, lowers the cardiovascular risk, and 1 ounce is a safe amount when it comes to heavy metals.
Well, another talk for a long time was the higher the cocoa ratio, the healthier it was. And now you're saying, no, back that down.
Well, generally that's true. The higher, and also the higher the cocoa, the less sugar it has. So that's good too. Just for some bars, not all, some of the ones that do not contain concerning levels of heavy metals are Ghirardelli, 72%, Ghirardelli, 86% cacao. So, but if you can't keep all that straight, just as a general rule of thumb, only eat 1 ounce. That is easier said than done.
Stock in that company.
No, I do not. But I buy it.
Fish. I'm trying to get a lot more fish in my diet, and the red meat, okay. Yeah. That's an indulgence, but fish, I'm doing a lot of salmon. What are the bad ones?
Well, so you're doing great, because the CDC and almost every other health expert says people should eat fish. Fish is extremely healthy, although all fish has mercury, some more than others. So we really need to watch out for high mercury content fish. And an example of that is orange roughy, the big fish, shark, swordfish, some tilefish. So go to the low mercury fish. We've got salmon here, cod, whitefish, shrimp. If you want to know the whole list, go to the CDC website.
Okay. All right. So we've got the good stuff. Kale.
Kale is another.
I grew up on kale. Dad was, we got to eat kale.
Yeah. And it's still a great thing. Here's the thing that you need to know.
It does make your kitchen smell a little bit.
I'm one of these people who eats kale morning, noon, and night. I love kale. And here's the thing about kale. It is fine, except if you buy the non-organic kind, the conventionally grown, the regularly grown kale, it has high levels of pesticides. Oh. So most nutritionists are say, look, if you don't normally buy organic, that's fine in some cases, but you probably should buy organic kale because it has high levels of pesticides. Other foods that are organically grown that have high levels of pesticides are strawberries, blueberries, grapes, apples.
Can you soak them and get rid of that? Or
not really, no.
Not really?
And when you wash them. So, but if you don't want to buy organic, some of the lower pesticides, conventionally grown foods are ones that sort of have rinds on the outside, like avocados and pineapples, citrus fruits, peas.
Anything you can peel.
Yeah, pretty much like that. And for that complete list, you can go to Environmental Working Group website, EWG, their website.
Okay. Well, thanks for the information. Got an education. If you want more information, all you got to do is go to cbnnews.com. Get educated about what you're putting in your body, and to the extent you can eliminate pesticides, anything related to heavy metals, we want you to live long and healthy.
Absolutely. Amen, brother.
Terry, over to you.
From professional athletes suffering major slumps to executives experiencing financial failure, Darlene Santor has seen it all in her role as a mental skills coach. She also experienced extreme setbacks in her own personal life.
For over 25 years, author and motivational speaker Darlene Santor, also known as Coach Dar, has been helping top CEOs, world leaders, and professional athletes come back stronger after dealing with some of life's most difficult situations. As a mental skills coach, she teaches people how to move forward in life by changing the way they respond to challenges and obstacles, just like she did. Coach Dar's own setbacks include 3 strokes, which started at the age of 25. In her book, The Art of Bouncing Back, Coach Dar gives proven strategies and techniques to help you become resilient in the face of adversity.
And who doesn't need that? Darlene Santor joins us now, and we welcome you to the 700 Club. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Your first stroke happened at 25. What happened? What initiated that?
I had sciatic pain, so I had gone to see a chiropractor, and when I went to see the chiropractor, when they manipulated the neck, it ripped the vertebral artery, so I was left bleeding in the brain.
Wow. How did you handle that? I mean, 25 years old, it created a stroke scenario for you that created some big issues. How did you mentally handle all of that?
Because I didn't have paralysis, but I had visual problems and balance problems, and I was working on a stroke unit as an occupational therapist taking care of the patients, I knew what to do. So I probably masked more of it than I showed. Yeah. And I just worked through it because I felt like I needed to help others, not receive the help.
Well, one of the things that you did was make a deal with God after that first stroke. Tell us about that.
It was a few years after that everything kind of came crashing down, and I thought, I really felt called by God that I needed to get up and serve in a different way. And I said, when he said, drop your nets and follow, I did.
You had 2 more strokes, one at 38 and the other at 43. Now, by the 3rd stroke, I'm just saying, most people would be discouraged, depressed. How did you battle that?
That 3rd one was the hardest.
I'm sure.
It really, because it took away a lot of speech, fine motor balance, and By that point, the third one, you kind of are like, I know this rodeo a little.
Yeah.
And I had worked on all the mental skills work that I do with everyone. I started applying it to myself. And I had to do all of my own rehab because insurance wouldn't cover it.
Oh, my.
So I was sad that summer that I had to recover. It was a lot harder to come back from. But I persevered. I had my faith. And then I started giving back to others. I'd get on camera and I'd give speeches through, much like Zoom now. But I really came back to, if I could serve and if I could still speak and put myself in activities I used to do, I could get back.
But Darlene, weren't you afraid? Is this going to be my whole life? I mean, every few years, am I going to have another one of these?
Yes, because they say you have a 50% more chance likely to have another one each time. And my mom, when she was alive, she even said, are you worried? Because she had one as well. And I said, you know, Mom, as long as God allows us to be here, then he's going to see us through it. And I really lean on that.
So you must lean on it today because, you know, you could face a fourth. And but you continue to, the bounce back is the exciting part of what you've been able to do. What role did your faith play in all of this?
I don't know what I would do without it. I really don't. Because every day I pray and every day. And it shifted my mindset to, I'm not here for me. I'm truly here as a servant of the Lord. So when I get up in the morning, if he still has me here, I serve. And that's what drives me.
You have helped a lot of people to bounce back, not necessarily from strokes, but from all kinds of, you know, financial issues, business issues. What are some of the essential pointers that you share with people that really seems to make a difference in how they manage all of that?
I really tried to get them to understand that God hardwired you a certain way. So while you may have a financial setback, a heart ache, job loss, whatever it may be, God still gave you the gifts he gave you. No one takes that away. So if I could get them to stay rooted in the hardwiring of how he created them, then they could get back up. Because loss will happen, but how he created us is never lost.
One point you make in your book is called Turning the Page. I want you to tell us what happened when you spoke to a neurologist.
Yeah, so from 25, when I was told at 25 years old, the first time when I had my first stroke, I was told I wasn't able to have children. And I lived with that for all these years because of the blood clot. And then just recently, when the neurologist said, did I hear you say all this time you thought you couldn't have children? And I said, yes. He said, you could have.
Wow. Wow.
And I have been living all these years thinking I couldn't, and wasn't in relationships because of that. And I had to sit there in the car and go, God, I'm not sure why I'm receiving this information now. But then I said, well, I need to reframe this because if you wanted it, it would have been. And it's time to turn the page and just keep going forward on what you call me to.
Yeah. There's an element of surrender in all of this, not the kind of surrender that goes, I can't do anything about this. I'm just going to wallow in the mud of my own situation. It's a different kind of surrender.
It really is.
Yeah. How did you get to the place where you could do that? Because you're really trading, I mean, even in what you're talking about with the childbearing, you're trading your dream for God's purpose.
Truly. And then the way I look at that is, but truly his dream is a better dream than I could ever dream of. So it is in that surrendering that I get to move forward.
Yeah. It's in that relationship.
Every day,
every single day. The art of bouncing back. Wow. I mean, this is a big message for many people. Find your flow to thrive at work and in life anytime you're off your game. Everybody's off their game once in a while. What do you want the takeaway to be?
Just know that as long as we're here, we have the ability to bounce back. We are more resilient than we could ever imagine.
Yeah, I just kept thinking of Romans 8:28 as I read your book. All things work together for good.
Absolutely.
To those who love God.
Yes.
Well, I want you to know the book is available wherever books are sold nationwide. And Darlene Santor, The Art of Bouncing Back. Thank you.
Thank you
Great to
so
have you
much.
with us today.
Thank
Quite
you.
a story.
Welcome back to Washington for the CBN Newsbreak. The Pentagon has released footage of the Russian intercept of a U.S. surveillance drone from earlier this week. The incident, described by military officials as unsafe and unprofessional, occurred Tuesday in international airspace over the Black Sea. The video reportedly shows a Russian jet approaching the back of the drone and beginning to release fuel. NBC News reports U.S. officials believe the action was approved at the highest levels in the Kremlin. Well, TikTok dismissed the Biden administration's call for its Chinese owners to sell their stakes in the app. The administration warned the app could be banned if it doesn't comply. A House Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States also called for the sale. TikTok is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, and there are concerns it could collect user data and make it available to the Chinese government. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.
My dental health was not good. I had periodontal disease, and I just didn't feel well. But then I found Clear Choice.
Replacing Marcia's teeth with dental implants at Clear Choice was going to afford her that permanent solution.
Clear Choice dental implants gave me the ability to take on the world. I feel so much better, and I think that that is the key.
I spent many years here.
Now available.
And I've returned with a message.
I Am Patrick. Get your DVD today for a gift of any dollar amount. A splendid account of St. Patrick.
He didn't know what he faced, possible death.
Featuring John Rhys Davies. I Am Patrick. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com.
You can celebrate St. Patrick's Day by activating your instant streaming access to I Am Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland. It's in 4K HD, and you can do it today for a gift of any dollar amount. We'll also send you a copy of the DVD right to you, and you'll enjoy on the DVD special bonus segments featuring interviews with the actors and an exclusive look behind the making of the film. Your gift will also go towards helping CBN produce inspirational films that highlight historical figures or illuminate the Word of God. We're working right now on Oracles of God, how we got the Bible and how you can rely on the Bible. To get your DVD copy of I Am Patrick plus instant 4K streaming access, all you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000, or you can visit iampatrick.com. Terry?
Well, Ruja was 2 years old and she could barely stand. That's because she was born with a hole in her heart. And without the surgery her parents could never afford, Ruja would die. Ruja was very sick when she was born.
She was as light as a feather, like a wooden bird in my arms. Her breathing was weak. She closed her eyes and didn't move.
The couple hoped for a miracle. However, within 2 months, Ruja wasn't any better and had fevers over 102.
The doctor did some tests and said she had a hole in her heart that would get bigger and could one day kill her. My wife and I wept. The miracle we hoped for hadn't happened.
And the pain in her heart continued to get worse.
She cried from morning till night. Her face was pale and her mouth was purple. She never slept well. Sometimes she would groan or scream and put her little hand to her heart.
Her heart beat very fast. I was afraid she'd suddenly die, so I stayed up all night to watch her.
At 2, Ruja was still very weak.
Her legs were so soft that she couldn't even walk steadily.
Her immunity was so bad that she got pneumonia, and doctors said the hole in Ruja's heart had gotten bigger. She needed surgery as soon as possible.
I asked around for charities that could help fund heart surgery for poor children. And then one day, someone at the hospital told me about CBN.
CBN helped pay for Ruja's surgery, and today she's healthy and full of energy.
She's really changed a lot since her operation. Now she eats like a horse and is always running ahead of us and asking us to hurry up.
She is so strong. This is the miracle we were waiting for. When we thanked CBN for making it happen, they said the miracle was from God. We never believed before, but now we want to understand this great God.
I often think of the way she used to be. Life was a nightmare until we met CBN. Now it's a beautiful dream.
a hole in the heart that would have ended in death had it not been fixed. It could be fixed, but it wasn't possible simply because Rouge's parents did not have the money to do it. 700 Club members, you gave that girl life. We just want to say thank you to you. That's the kind of work you're doing around the world. One of many, many things that 700 Club members do that bring hope into hopeless situations. So we just want to say thank you. You know, 65 cents a day, $20 a month makes you a 700 Club member. So we invite you, if you haven't yet joined, to become part of an outreach that is bringing not just hope into these kinds of circumstances, but also the message of God's love. It changed this whole family. Join with us, won't you? There are many levels. You just saw some of them right there. You can be a general member for the $20 a month, or join us at 700 Club Gold at $40 a month. Many people join us as 1,000 Club members. That's $84 a month. Or you can see there's a 2,500 Club level at $209 a month, and then our founders at $417 a month. Do something today to make a difference in the needs of others. Our line is even toll-free to call. It's 1-800-700-7000. Just call and say, I want to join the 700 Club. When you do, we have a gift for you. It is Gordon's teaching called Divine Direction, God's blueprint for your future. Everybody wants to know that we're here with reason and purpose, and this is a teaching that's all about that. And it comes to you with a wonderful daily devotional to go with it. We'll send that to you as well. But I want to tell you about Robin. She lives in Rimlap, Alabama, and writes, "Oh, what a blessing Divine Direction has answered some of my deepest questions that I've had, I believe, my entire life. I'm also using the devotional, and I'm enjoying it very much." We want you to have both of these gifts, and most of all, we want you to join us in touching the world with the love of Jesus. So call now. Well, Easter is just a few weeks away, and we want this to be your most meaningful Easter ever. Our devotional guide called Hope for Redemption will walk you through the final week of Jesus' life. You'll be following his path to Jerusalem, observing his last Passover meal, witness his crucifixion, and then celebrate his empty tomb. So this Easter, you can experience the power of the cross like never before. If you'd like to get your free copy of Hope for Redemption, just call our toll-free number, 1-800-700-7000, or you can visit cbn.com/Easter devotional, and we'll get it out to you right away, the Hope for Redemption. You know, sometimes at Easter season, it's hard to find as many things as there are available at other holidays for Christians, and this is a great little promotion.
It's a wonderful book, and realize the season we're in. It's the season that we call Holy Week for a reason, and spend it with him, the Holy One, and go through his passion. The reason we call it the Passion is his passion for you, that he loved you so much that he was willing to die for you. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. And that joy is you. So the more you can understand about it, the more you understand the journey, what is written in Scripture, what was fulfilled in this wonderful prophetic week where Jesus gave himself for you and me, the more we can do that, we remember him until he comes. Well, Michael thought God only made two kinds of people, the ones who had storybook lives and the others, like him, whose lives were filled with pain and suffering. Michael tried to hide his misery with alcohol and drugs until he had a supernatural encounter that set him free forever.
I used to tell people in my late teen years, I'm not going to live to see 30. Not with the way that I'm living. I was either going to die from some drug overdose or experience, I was going to die in a jail cell somewhere, or I was going to die because of things that were happening out on the streets.
Michael Dow searched for meaning and acceptance in his life. As a teenager, he used drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism for the pain and abandonment he had experienced at home.
Things went sideways because of brokenness and addiction in my own home. What started as immature wine coolers and cigarettes turned into hard liquor, all kinds of alcohol, smoking weed, ended up getting expelled from school, ended up homeless, living on the streets as an addict and a drug dealer that was constantly in and out of jail. And there didn't seem to be any end to the exposure or the down spiraling.
Harder drugs and addiction soon took over. The more Michael tried to pull himself out of the darkness he felt in his life, the deeper he fell into it.
I thought God created two types of people. People that would kind of have this storybook kind of life, right? Like mom, dad, couple of kids, dog, maybe a bird or a fish, you know, nice house, white picket fence. And then there were others that their lot in life was suffering and pain and trial. And so hope wasn't even a word for me. The worst part about it was I realized I didn't have the ability to do anything about it myself.
In the midst of gloom and desperation, Michael called out to a God he didn't know or understand.
And I looked out into the sky one night with tears running down my face. And I said, God, I don't even know if you're real. I don't know if you're out there. I've heard people talk about you. I don't even necessarily believe that you're real. But if you are, you're the only thing, person, whatever, that can change my life. Because I want to be different. I just don't know how, and I can't. And if you're not real, I'm gonna die being who I am.
Around that time, Michael became interested in a girl he met at a party. She asked him to go to church with her.
She said, if you come to church, my parents will let me spend more time with you. So like any other 20-year-old guy trying to connect with a girl, like, well, we're going to church then. I would go drunk and high out of my mind to church and sit in the back row and laugh at everybody because of how silly this place was.
During one Sunday night service, the pastor's wife approached him and asked if he would pray with her and the pastor at the altar.
I end up at the altar. All I care about necessarily is this girl I'm dating. And the pastor says, can I pray for you? And he said, how about this? Would you be willing to, tonight, lay your life down for God and decide that from this day forward, you'll no longer live your life for yourself and the things that you want only. But from tonight forward, you're gonna live your life for God and in a way that would be pleasing to Him. So I said, yeah, man, I'll do that. And everybody seemed kind of shocked, like, oh man, like the drug dealer, the guy that's in trouble, you know, he's gonna get saved. And he said, you can pray what I'm praying, or you can say whatever comes out of your heart. He's like, but would you just lift your hands and, you know, we'll kind of lead you. So I lifted my hands and I prayed this prayer, and I broke into what was this crazy visionary encounter. Across this distance, I saw a man. And I knew immediately that the man was Jesus. And with this joy and this excitement on his face, he started running in my direction and grabbed me and embraced me and held me close. And man, I just broke down. And man, I just cried and cried and cried. And he just spoke certain things over my life. I was, what I later found out, the Bible calls a new creation. Immediately delivered from drug addiction, alcoholism, perversion, rage and violence and brokenness, just a brand new person.
Michael embraced this transformation and began his journey following Jesus. He met the pastor's daughter, who he later married and started a family with. Together, they lead an international ministry team and share the love of God that gives hope to the hopeless.
There's no pit too deep. There's no hole too dark. There's no experience in brokenness or suffering that is beyond the reach of God's love and power to be able to rush into our circumstance and redeem us and transform us. Man, gratitude to God for the life that He has privileged me to be able to live now, day by day. I don't deserve it.
God will do the same thing for you. Maybe you're like Michael, you're wondering, is there a God? Does He really exist? Does He really love me? Does He really care? Is He off on some throne somewhere thinking bad thoughts about me? Is He judging me for the things that I've done? All of these thoughts that run through our minds when we're separated from him, that we're orphaned and we're crying out, where are you? And we don't get answers to those prayers. We're just lost. Listen to Michael's story. If you do the same thing, you'll get the same result. You'll have your own unique vision of who God is, who Jesus is. He promises, it's a wonderful promise, he promises that he will manifest himself. He will show up for you. The original Greek is he'll turn the light on, that you'll finally be able to see and you'll be able to hear and you'll be able to understand with your heart. For Michael, what a dramatic turnaround. For you, just imagine what life would be with God. That this would be a world now of unlimited possibilities, where he would enable you to do all things. With him, you can do all things. Without him, you can't accomplish a thing. Michael was living the, I can't accomplish a thing, I can't do it. So he prayed that prayer. He prayed, God, if you're real, I don't even know if you're there, but if you're real, could you come? Could you change me? I can't do this on my own. I can't live on my own. You know, if I don't have you, I'm going to die. I can't change. That's a wonderful prayer to pray. And God worked things out. So he would show up at a church, and even drunk and high, show up at a church. Jesus talked about this. He talked about a tax collector showing up at the temple saying, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. And that tax collector walked away justified. These are the words of Jesus. Now, a tax collector, by his very means of living, is sinning every single day. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're so lost in it, you don't see a way out. It's the same prayer. Have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. And you can have an experience. Taste and see that the Lord is good. You can have an experience that transforms you from your innermost being, gives you this wonderful concept, and it's peace. And it's not just some thought, but you actually have it in your heart. If you want that, pray with me. Let's pray the same prayer, and God will do all the rest. Bow your head with me. Say his name, Jesus. Say it out loud, Jesus. I come to you, and Jesus, I ask that you would forgive me, that you would turn my life around. I can't do it. I don't have the willpower. I don't have the ability, but I turn to you and I ask that you come into my heart, that you transform me, that you make me new again, that you would be with me and give me this peace and forgiveness. And Jesus, if you do that, I will follow you. I will follow you all the days of my life. I give my life to you and ask that you would fill me with you and your glory. Do it, Lord, for I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. If you prayed with me, let me know. We've got a free packet for you. What do you do now? How do you live the Christian life? Phone call's free. Do it right now. 1-800-700-7000. Here's a word from Corinthians. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. All things have become new.